Setting up for a 3-player game of Kami-sama is done exactly the same, with a few exceptions. First, when you set up the advent tokens to indicate the starting village and the end of the round, so you have your blue advent token, your red advent token in the farming village, the player sitting near the farming village, your first player, is also going to be given the first player marker, in this case the Kami-sama first player card that we have for demonstration purposes. Again, all prototype components here. You will then set everything else up as normal, as instructed in the other setup, the only difference being every player will have 19 shrines instead of 18. So everybody will have one additional shrine to help fill out the board with one less player. Play is going to proceed exactly as normal. So Hala's going to come here, she's going to take her 3 actions, and we're just going to keep this simple for purposes. She's going to use her basic add remove shrine ability to add into a couple of spaces here. So maybe she plops in the field, she grabs her 2 favor and her 1 nature for that. After her turn, play would normally proceed to the wealthy village and the player seated there. However, there is no player in this example, so play continues up to Ginsui up in the fishing village up here. Ginsui is going to take his turn as normal. So again, we'll just keep it simple. He's going to place 3 shrines. Maybe he goes here in the forest for 2 nature. He goes in this hut, and then he takes this field for 2 favor, keeping those tracks balanced. Play will then rotate, or not rotate, but play will then move to Shize over here, our 3rd player, who again will do the same thing. We'll keep everything simple for the sake of just showing how this works. She's going to go in the field for 2 nature, or 2 favor, in the forest for 2 nature, and then she'll go in this stilt house. That is the end of Shize's turn. We're back to Hala, our first player here, and play will continue as normal in that the board's going to rotate. So the board will rotate a quarter turn like it normally does. So we're going to rotate this board, sending the farming village one side away. And again, you'll notice that the blue advent token moved with the board. The other thing we need to move when the board rotates is we need to rotate the first player marker now over to the next player in line. In this case would be Ginsui. Ginsui takes his actions as normal. So he's going to place his 3 shrines in this now empty village because no one was playing in this village before. So he went in a field and a forest, so he's going to gain 2 more nature, 2 more favor. We move to Shize, who is going to come in here and pop in her 3 shrines. Maybe she decides she wants to go in the temple and take a favor for doing so. We'll pop those in there. Hala will take her turn, so she'll go ahead and she'll take her field, so she gets her nature and favor bonus. She's going to go here for the forest, and then maybe she's going to take this temple as well because she sees some ties may happen. She wants to be able to bump those up and be able to decide. At the end of Hala's turn, play would normally go to the village to her left. There's not a player there. So the board is going to rotate again, and the first player marker will rotate over here to the Shize player. So we rotate the board again. Everyone will now take their actions as normal. The board's going to rotate the 4th time, as it normally would, moving the first player marker back over to Hala. So Hala will be the first player for the 4th round of the first year. Once the advent tokens line back up, the year ends as normal, scoring happens as normal. The board will rotate its quarter turn. The first player marker will then pass up here to Ginsui for the start of year 2. And of course, players are going to get their 4th action cube. Ginsui will be first player twice during round 2, just as Hala was in round 1, where she started as first player and she ended as first player. Ginsui will start and end as first player during year 2. At year 3, the board will rotate, making Shize the first player at the start of round 3. Again, players are going to get their 5th action cube, so they have more actions they're able to take. And then now Shize will be our first player during year 3 at the start and on the last turn. So players are still going to be taking 12 turns like they would during the normal 4-player game. The absence of a player just introduces a first player card that gets passed as the board rotates. Everything else in Kami-sama between the 3-player and the 4-player game is exactly the same. Setting up a 2-player game of Kami-sama is very similar to the 3- and 4-player games in that the first player, in this case again we're with Hala as our first player in the farming village. Advent tokens are still set up as normal so that we indicate the end of the round when they line back up as the board rotates. Hala will also be given the first player card as she was during the 3-player variant. Now, in the 2-player variant, we introduce the mischievous fox Kitsune. Kitsune is a nine-tailed fox that is here to wreak havoc and raise some mischief throughout the villages, while the two players are competing against one another to be crowned the Kami-sama. The way the two-player game works is Hala's going to take her turn just like normal. So we're going to use her 3 shrines, or her ability to place 3 shrines. We're going to put in the hut, this stilt house, and this field. Go ahead and grab her 2 favor and her 1 nature for her passive ability like we're used to seeing. There's no player over here, obviously, in the wealthy village, so we'll move up to the fishing village with Ginsui. Ginsui's going to take his 3 actions, simply placing his shrines in. So he's going to go here in this forest, he's going to go in this hut, and he's going to go in this field, balancing those favor and nature tracks. It is now Kitsune's turn. Kitsune is playing in the Holy Village. You draw the top card of the Kitsune deck to take his turn, and you do what the card says. Now, this card, you proceed from top to bottom, left to right, and you do exactly what the card says. So in this first row, there's a yellow square with a number 2 and a couple of arrows, one pointing to the left, one pointing to the right. The yellow indicates that you're replacing shrines, starting in this space. So I'm going to put this card here. The way this would work is you would start with that space, which doesn't exist in this village because it's water. You would then move to the left, replacing any shrines. So if there were any opponent shrines in either of these spaces, that shrine would be removed and replaced with one of Kitsune's shrines. Once that's done, you would then move to the right. The number 2 indicates the number of times that this effect will be done. So effectively, if he's able to do so, Kitsune would replace 2 shrines in this top row. The next action is to look at down here. He has a red box with a 2 and the arrows pointing the same way. And the red indicates that he's going to add shrines. So he's going to start in this space and he's going to add one of his shrines. He will then move to the left as indicated by the first arrow. So he's going to move this way, and until he hits an available spot where he can add a shrine, which he does. He has now added 2 shrines, and the card says that he will add 2 shrines. So he replaces 2 shrines if able, and then adds 2 shrines with this card. His turn is now over. You simply discard the Kitsune card. The board will now rotate like normal. So we're going to rotate the board just like we normally would in a 3-player game, a 4-player game. We're going to rotate that board. So the Advent token is going to move. The first player card is going to pass here to Ginsui. And the Kitsune token, which was over here, is now going to jump over to this village. So now Kitsune is going to be affecting the other side of the board. The idea behind Kitsune is Kitsune will always take its turn after both players have gone. That gives him the ability to wreak some additional havoc. So let's see what happens here. Ginsui takes his turn in this empty village. He places in a field, grabbing 2 favor. He places in a forest to grab 2 nature, and he places in this hut. So he gets his shrines out there using his normal abilities. Hala's going to do the same. She's going to come in here and grab this field for 2 favor, 1 nature. She then takes this forest to grab 2 nature, and then she's going to pop in the temple to take a nature. It is now Kitsune's turn to wreak havoc in the farming village. So again, we draw the top card of the Kitsune deck, and we see a blue square first up here with a 2 and 2 arrows pointing left and right. Blue indicates that Kitsune is going to remove shrines. This is very bad for Hala because she placed her shrines right where Kitsune is going to be removing. So again, we orientate the card toward the village, and we work according to the arrows. Kitsune is going to first remove 2 shrines, starting with the space here. So that shrine's going to get removed. And then the arrow says to move this direction first. And so Kitsune would remove this shrine. Had there not been a shrine in that direction to remove, the second arrow would have moved things back this direction, and the other shrine, this shrine here, would be removed instead. Now that Kitsune has removed 2 shrines, we continue resolving the card by adding shrines. So Kitsune is going to start in the bottom row down here. Cannot add a shrine here because there's not actually a space there. The first arrow points up, so points up this way toward the temple. So Kitsune is going to add in any available spaces until it has added 2 shrines. So Kitsune adds these 2 shrines here, and that is the end of Kitsune's turn. The board would rotate again. So if we rotate the board again like normal, like we always do. The board always rotates. First player is going to pass back to Hala, and Kitsune is going to jump over to this side of the board, and will now be affecting this side of the board. So after Hala takes her turn, maybe she does 2 favor, 1 nature. Maybe she does something along these lines. Ginsui takes his turns, places his shrines. Let's go Field Forest. Whoops. Field Forest Hut. And then we move to Kitsune again, who would now take its turn in the Wealthy Village here. So we draw this card again. We start at the top. We're going to remove shrines, starting in this space and moving down. There are no shrines to remove. We then come here, starting in this space. He's going to remove 2 shrines, starting with going this direction. So this shrine goes away, and then the next arrow says down, so this shrine will go away. So Ginsui is going to lose 2 of his shrines. And then it has adding 2 shrines, starting with the bottom middle space, which is water, and moving up 2 first. So Kitsune is going to add 2 shrines to these 2 spaces. It is important to note that Kitsune, even if he places in fields or forests, will not gain favor or nature points and does not score. Kitsune is really there to wreak havoc and make it harder for the players to complete patterns, as well as to break up chains as they're chaining shrines together to gain the favor of the villagers and be able to draft villagers. Play continues as normal. Again, once the advent tokens line up, we do end of year scoring, and just like normal, draft villagers and do your scoring based on favor and nature tracks. Each player will gain an action cube, a 4th action cube, play out year 2, draft villagers, score favor and nature tracks at the end of year 2, gain a 5th action cube to play year 3 in, scoring favor and nature tracks, drafting villagers, and then doing end of game scoring.